What's up, everybody? Today I'm going to be talking about one of the things that specifically launched my career and helped me get ahead of about 80% of my competition. And it's most certainly not specific to me. You can do this in your own life, and depending on where you're at in your career, you can implement it pretty quickly. And in the process, hopefully I can dispel one of the most ridiculous misconceptions inside of the career and entrepreneurship space, which is that you should pursue your passion. This information should benefit everyone, unless you're really satisfied with your career or already done with it. And even if you disagree with me, hopefully you can find some good information to chew on. So welcome to the Brave Fixers YouTube channel. We are a construction company located in Chicago, Illinois. But on this channel, I like to make content that's related to quality, risk, and respect in regards to the trades, but also just careers in general. So let's get right into it. So have you ever come across the absolute pile of articles named things like "Find Your Passion in 6 Easy Steps" or "Follow Your Passions and Success Will Follow You"? In every possible variation of these titles, they're just very recycled with different numbers of steps. I even took a high school class that was called Pursue Your Passion. It was an entrepreneurship class. And unfortunately, all of these people are lying to us. But fortunately, I have some information to present that might actually be an alternative and more actionable. So the first section of this video is going to be why pursuing your passion is bad advice. The second section is going to be some actionable information on how to find something that you're talented at and find the right industry to implant yourself into. And then the third section is going to be a little bit more philosophical in regards to what is human flourishing and how that could possibly look within an employment situation. And hopefully from that information, you'll be able to know how to increase the amount of flourishing that you have in your own life. Chances are your passion is in the wrong industry for a few different reasons. First of all, I feel like most people's passions are the things that kind of make life worth living, right? So like art, music, creativity, or something that's like very glamorous, the billionaire entrepreneur, or like some sort of movie star or something like that. Now, it just so happens that these things are highly enjoyable things to do. But they are also in industries with very low employment rates and highly competitive people. Industries related to music, sports, performance arts, and politics are extremely difficult to get your foot in the door of. For me, for example, I have a little bit of an art career. I haven't given it up. It's definitely a hobby. I've even shown some of my work in the past year. But years ago, when I first moved to Chicago, I started an art podcast, and that was how I was going to get my foot in the door. Unfortunately, the pandemic in March of 2020 kind of put that idea off to the wayside, and I didn't do much with it. But I also realized through interviewing these people and getting to know various people within the art scene that art is a horrible, horrible place to try and make money in. For the low employment rates, there's a lot of people that are willing to work for virtually nothing. And then you have, we could say, some megalomania with the people that actually make it, because frankly, they are the best of the best, and that goes to people's heads pretty quickly. And especially if someone is like a power broker, they can kind of have that gatekeeping ability with like a gallery or some sort of curator, museums particularly. Like those people can be pretty terrible to work around sometimes, but some of them can be really great. But chances are they're all probably geniuses and smarter than you. At least they're smarter than me. Another reason why you probably don't want to pursue your passion is you might suck at it. That's no reason as to why you should stop doing it. But just like the people that make it are probably the best of the best, or they have some sort of edge on you, you have to be in that upper 1% to even really have a shot of making a career out of things. So you don't even have to suck that bad to kind of be kicked down the road with some of these industries with really low employment rates. But like I said, I don't think that should persuade anyone to not be doing their hobbies. Like me, for example, personally, I have this philosophy of like hyperlocality where I think that we need to bring things that we've professionalized like sports and music and performance arts, we need to bring that back into our local communities, because I feel like more people should be playing music or putting on little performances than they actually are. But when you're like trying to compete with the few people that make movies, it's just not going to happen. But plenty of people should be doing it, and it's plenty easy to get involved with like a community that's local and put on these performances, which honestly can be so much more meaningful. For example, my hand woodworking that I do, I really like these intricate joints and things like that, and I could make money off of it. I have done some projects for people where I've incorporated some of my hand woodworking, but when I incorporated these things, I knew that I was not going to make money off of it. And if you extrapolated out how much I charged versus how many hours I put into it, I probably would have been making just a few dollars an hour. Because honestly, like, I think society is just too complicated and we need to make so much money per hour to be able to get by that our productivity needs to be so much higher than some of these really fine, like, artisanal things that nobody really does anymore, because we have nails and screws and construction adhesive and things like that. But I still do it. I still really enjoy it. I really enjoy the artwork of it. And some people make careers out of it, but they are like the best of the best, or they figure out some other way to make a different revenue stream off of it, such as posting the videos on TikTok and things like that. But then going from this really passionate perspective on something, like really loving something like fine woodworking for the craft of it, it also creates a third issue for trying to pursue your passion, which is that compromise becomes difficult. And let's just be honest, any sort of professional career that you go into, you're going to have to compromise, particularly if you want to be good at it, because we're all working for other people here. Even someone like me who has my own business, I have clients and I'm beholden to my clients. And most of the time I can't say that, no, we're not going to do it the way you want it, because as the craftsman in this situation, I think this is the better way to go. There's plenty of times when I can do that, but when it comes to like the hand woodworking, cutting out joints with a chisel, that's a pretty hard sell, because it's going to be like 50 times more expensive. And honestly, if you are genuinely passionate about something, you probably shouldn't compromise. If it's an art piece that you're making, you should be taking advice, but you shouldn't be making something that someone else wants to make. You should be doing what you want to do with it and seeing your vision out to the fullest. But that's not really conducive to working in a collaborative environment. And honestly, there is the option. Some people do become known as like the renegade genius or the auteur of their craft. And they can actually demand more money based off of their specific vision. But to be entirely honest, a lot of that is just marketing, frankly. And so you can do that, but you probably got to be self-employed and pretty good at marketing. So if you can take a step back and kind of look at these people that are promoting pursue your passion, I think you can see that a lot of these universities and life coaches, they probably say these things because it gets people to click on the article and it gets people to buy the course. But frankly, they don't care if you become the rock star or the genius architect or whatever, because you are really the only one who's invested in your career and no one else. So it might be a tough pill to swallow, hearing me say some of these things, that, you suck at your passion and you're never going to be successful. But most of us are in the 80% of the population, and that's just fact of the matter. And honestly, I feel totally comfortable saying these things because if you are the kind of person who is going to go the lengths to become the next big thing in whatever low employment industry you choose, more power to you. And you probably know that you're the best, and you're probably just going to go for it anyways, regardless of what I tell you. But the rest of us just want to make some cash. So let's talk about some practical things and how to find your talent. So as I was thinking about this and brainstorming, asking people what they've done and thinking about my history, I think one of the primary ways that you can find what you're talented at is just look at historically what you've done and what you excelled at and what you enjoyed. And like a Venn diagram, you want to find the center where those three things intersect. So for example, if you look back at your high school or university career, you might not want to look particularly at what you got good grades in, but maybe more of what you learned really quickly or had an interest in. And at that stage of your life, your hobbies might be one of the main things that informs what you're talented at. It'll also kind of intersect with your passions as well, but you should be able to tell if something comes naturally or not. So for me, I didn't really know, but I was naturally inclined towards physics and woodshop, just like dealing with physical reality and working with my hands. I also really loved writing and music and performance art and things like that, which are my passions, frankly. But I could tell that I was like a little bit better than the other kids in the woodworking class. And whenever I would take on like a little personal woodworking project, I would really get into it. A lot of people have side hustles. And even though I don't think side hustles are the best idea overall, because you should just try to focus on one or two things, the side hustles can also inform you into what you're good at. So for example, before I moved to Chicago and I was trying to really get into arts and everything, I started a little side hustle building stretched canvas and art panels for other artists. I did pretty well. It was difficult for me to figure out how much to charge, so it didn't like take off, but I noticed that I enjoyed the work. I enjoyed finding clients, and my clients enjoyed the work that I did. So that kind of checks the boxes. This is something that I'm talented at, building things, working with wood, finding clients, meeting people. That entrepreneurship is also most certainly a talent. It leads directly into sales. And if neither of those work for you, you can look at industries with high employment and the kind of jobs in those industries and see if anything piques your interest, or if you want to imagine that Venn diagram again, if there's anything that seems to be intersecting. And when you're learning new things, pay attention to things that might come easily. But you can also ask around. Ask your family members, your parents, cousins, whoever. A lot of these people can spot what you're good at, even as like a child. Like I know my parents have always said that I was a very crafty, creative little guy, and I really enjoyed the Legos. And so there's just more and more of that kind of mechanical inclination and problem-solving thing that seems to come naturally for me. But you can also look at your current skills and see if there's any sort of cross-compatibility. So I've heard people say that they just really love measuring things. One person who told me that they worked at a haberdashery. They made dresses. And so those skills probably translate really well to someone who wants to try their hand at carpentry. I've even noticed in some of the employees that I've had and trained that people who have experience with baking, particularly decorating cakes, really pick up drywall taping fast, impressively fast. And last but not least, I know it's not the easiest thing for a lot of people to carry out, but I think it might have the best bang for the buck, is working for free. You would be pretty surprised at how many companies you can just shadow. You can just go up to them and ask if they want any extra help or if you can hang around for a while. And a good friend of mine, another person who eventually became a builder, a general contractor, he got into the trades through carpentry, and he found a company, talked to the owner of the company, and said that he wanted to work for him for free, but he wanted to get the training out of it. He wanted to be able to shadow the lead carpenter and be able to be like the lead guy. And it took him less than a year. I think he told me it was about 6 months for him to basically comprehend all of what goes into being the lead carpenter on projects. He basically went from 0 to 100 for free. He got all of this education, all this training, just on trade, basically, from his own labor. And the people that started as laborers at the same time as him didn't even come nearly as far. Because obviously the owner of the company is going to be thinking about their bottom line. The free help is just, it's valuable. I wish people would take more advantage of that. But I know everyone's got to make money, so it's probably not easy to take on a full-time job for nothing. So let's talk real quick about the 11 top industries and what I think about them. I'm going to also put a download link on my website if you want to grab this, or maybe it'll be a Google Drive link. I'm not 100% sure yet, but I'll put a link down in the description so you can use it if you're more interested in that. So number one, probably the best, definitely the best, is healthcare. I don't know if you've heard, but we live in a country, and most of the world, most of the developed world, all lives in countries where our population is rapidly aging, and we will need more people in healthcare and more new companies than ever before, especially because people are living longer than ever before. So the amount of years that they need taken care of is just going to be longer than ever before. Healthcare, not slowing down anytime soon. Retail. Now hear me out here. Undervalued. Even though there's a lot of jobs for low wages in retail, the thing that you can learn at retail is sales. And sales has absolutely no ceiling, and it applies to anywhere else. If you can talk to people and if you can realize what motivates people and be able to get them to walk out of the store with the pair of Nikes or the cell phone or whatever, then you will have a career cut out for you. And believe it or not, introverts, such as myself, are the most talented at sales. I think because introverts really understand how to connect with people and see what they really want, whereas extroverts just like yapping all the time. Next up, professional and business services. This is things like administrative support, management consultants, IT specialists, and accountants. I find this area the most boring, but I guarantee that as the business environment continues to complexify, small businesses and large businesses are just going to need more and more of these services. This is a great area if you're wanting to start your own business. You can do a lot of different things. You can help businesses develop better CRM systems and that sort of thing. Like management consultants, it's a huge industry and some of them get paid very well. You just might need a little bit of sales experience to get into that one. Then there's education services. Things like teachers, university professors. I wouldn't recommend this one to people right off the bat because it's like, especially high school educators have low wage issues and there's a lot of educational expenses that you need to put up front to it. However, it is a very secure job, and if you're a teacher, you are literally a hero. People need to be more aware of that. Manufacturing, which is another great one. Low barrier to entry. There's a pretty high earnings ceiling. Minimal requirements going into it. Lots of on-the-job training, just like construction. These are jobs like assemblers, machinists, plant operators. Even though there's been a bit of a decline over recent decades, we all know that it's probably going to be going up pretty soon. Then another services sector, accommodation and food services. I think this is similar to retail. It's a lot of low wage, low skilled jobs in here, but it does teach you very good personal skills. And if you are good at your job, then you can get to management pretty quickly. You can even start your own business. This is like cooks, servers, hotel staff. Again, low barrier to entry, but low wages. But I think there's some good stuff here because hospitality is one of the largest sectors in the United States, and I don't see that going away anytime soon. Then construction, my personal favorite, of course. I highly recommend it. Construction has one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country. We are absolutely starved for people. And let me tell you, you can move up really quick. One of the downsides is that there's a little bit of a stigma, but being able to make close to 6 figures after 5 years with absolutely no cost up front for education, hopefully that helps the stigma sting a little bit less. And honestly, that stigma is going away really quickly. And I guarantee that people will always need stuff fixed. Plumbers, electricians probably make the most amount of money the quickest, but carpentry and painting are also highly satisfying. It's very nice to be able to look at a beautiful object at the end of the day. A lot of plumbers are just kind of working in rough spaces and that sort of thing, but there's definitely a pay difference. Transportation and warehousing. This is another pretty good one. Kind of like retail and food services, though, you might find it difficult to break out of the bottom part of the triangle and work up to upper management and that sort of thing. But there are different avenues, like owner-operator. Truck drivers can pretty easily make $100K a year. So if you are good at just hanging out by yourself and listening to podcasts and driving, then that's a pretty good way to go for you. Next on the list, we have government. I don't know why anyone would want to do this, but I guess if you are a very run-of-the-mill, boring person, this is the job for you, because that job, baby, is never going away. Lots of room, I guess, to move up in the chain, but yeah, it's not my cup of tea. And technology and information services, similar to professional and business services, but a little bit more technical. This is one sector that's only going to continue to increase and increase over time. Like low voltage installers is probably going to be within this purview as well, but also independent companies that provide vendor services for large companies in terms of like their servers and their really technical machines that need maintenance. Like I have a friend in Portland who's got a job and he gets paid full time, and they're like a subcontractor for a large tech company working on these very complicated machines. But he gets a salary. He works like 3 or 4 days a week and has access to one main Intel campus that he works on. So there's gyms there, there's restaurants. And he told me that a good amount of the time he's just kind of hanging around reading books at the Intel campus. And he got that job. He knew someone, which is how he got into it, but low barrier to entry. There's very little educational requirements. I know he doesn't have a bachelor's or associates or anything like that, and he's doing pretty well. I'm a little jealous, frankly. And then there's the kind of interesting ones in the emerging markets. And I think these, if you're like wanting to take a little bit of a gamble, these are probably the ones where you could become a multimillionaire just by working your day job and collecting company stock. This is things like solar and wind energy, healthcare technology, things that are related to AI. Little niche, but if you look for it, you might be able to find a good gig. And if you really believe in the company, who knows, it might be the next Microsoft or Facebook or something, and that company stock that they give you is going to be worth a lot more in 10 years. So like I said, link in the description for the full breakdown on that. There's even more information that I didn't cover, but I think that's enough of that. So let's go into what it means to actually flourish in your job. Some of the best work on human flourishing comes out of the world of positive psychology. And one of my favorite ways to look at it was published by Seligman in 2011. And that's the PERMA, PERMA framework, which stands for positive emotion, engagement and flow, positive relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. Positive emotion is more than just happiness. It's feeling a sense of meaning and belonging, feeling like you're virtuous and belong, and all of these other things that make us feel warm inside. Engagement and flow is most noticeable with like athletes or just anybody being athletic or playing music. When you feel like you get kind of lost in the activity itself, that's a sign that you've reached a flow state. That's been shown that we've all need to hit these flow states and feel fully engaged in activities frequently for our brains to completely activated and happy. It's definitely a significant part of happiness. Positive relationships, that one I think is pretty easy to understand. It doesn't have to relate exactly to like family relationships and things like that. However, of course, those are great to have positive relationships with. But more importantly, the people that you're seeing on a day-to-day basis. Do you feel like you can trust your coworkers and act like yourself at work or wherever you're hanging out? Are you having a good time? Are you meeting new people? These are all positive relationship things. Meaning's a big one. Pretty hard to sum up, but I think we all understand when we feel like we're doing something meaningful, or we definitely understand the other side of it when we feel like we're doing something unmeaningful, like sitting on the phone on hold with Apple trying to get a phone returned. That's not fun. But when you're feeling engaged perhaps in some sort of group sport, or if you're at a concert or some sort of performance that feels profound, you're out in nature, you feel connected to the world around you, that's meaning. And then lastly, there's accomplishment. So I feel like this one's best played out in your work, in your career. Well, maybe that's just for me. It might be different for you. But all of us need to feel some degree of progression. If we feel like we're stuck in the same spot for forever, then that's just miserable. Nobody likes that. And so there needs to be some sense of accomplishment and progression going on in our lives for it to work within the larger mandala and for us to become happier. I think one of the important things to say here, which is a problem that I've had in the past, is that work and life are not separate. I know conceiving of them as like a work-life balance is very important, but I know that in my past, at least, I used to think that work was supposed to be somehow different from my personal life, so I didn't let people from work bleed over into personal things too much and vice versa, which honestly, it's better to have people from your work life to go into your personal life than people from your personal life go into your professional life. That can be difficult, especially if you're hiring family or anything like that. Trust me on it. But I think it helps me build more of a sense of meaning when I view work as an extension of my personal life. When I become more engaged with like my clients and I take what amount of happiness I can bring to their lives seriously. I don't get too overly invested because you do need to keep a distance sometimes, but there's a lot of benefits to really personalizing work and getting invested in it. I was going to mention earlier, but I didn't really get around to it, but there was a Pew Research study that came out which said that about 55% of Americans are highly satisfied with their jobs, which sounds pretty good, but I think that number should be a little bit higher. But ultimately, one of the main things that made them satisfied with their jobs, or one of the main qualities that people who were satisfied with their jobs had, it's kind of hard to tell whether they had it before the job or the job created it, but it's that they felt personally invested and engaged in their work, along with, of course, being paid well and trusting their coworkers and their managers. I thought that was interesting that really rose to the top of that study, because I feel like a lot of the advice I got from people in my personal life was to not take work too seriously and really focus on other things. And I think tied into this, particularly people that feel engaged and invested in their work are happier at work. I think people might shoot themselves in the foot by focusing on money a little bit too much. They think that they need the money to become invested, and they might give up an opportunity because they're not getting the money soon enough. So it might be valuable to reframe and focus a little bit more on finding a profession that you can flourish in and something that you're talented in. Because I guarantee that if you feel satisfied at work and you're good at it, the money will follow. You might have to learn some negotiation tactics. You might have to do some other things, which hopefully I get to cover on this channel. But as a rule of thumb, if you like what you do and you're good at it, you're going to make money. But don't forget about other forms of value as well. For example, if you're in a low employment sort of industry, like the entertainment industry, you need to get physically close to the people that can help your career move forward. So I'm sure everyone's heard the story about someone who was just the bouncer, like Terry Crews, was working security on movies until one day the director was like, hey, we need a big buff guy. You look great. Why don't you do this role? And then as like a semi-extra, he really got noticed and his career took off. So there's other forms of value. There's proximity to the elites, for lack of a better term. There's flourishing itself. If you love your job, but you just don't get paid as much as you might like, then that might totally be a good trade-off for you. And then also the skills. Just like someone who's working someplace for free, the value is in the education that you're getting from it, the practical experience, versus the amount of compensation. And there are cases, like my story with my friend Bobby, where the people that got hired at the same time as him, because they were getting paid hourly, they had access to less value than he had access to. So it's probably worth thinking a little bit more strategically about that. And then I can't help but dive a little bit deeper, since we're talking about human flourishing and meaning, into kind of this spiritual dynamic of at least my work, but I know a lot of people's works, especially if you're in some sort of hospitality or healthcare system. And that's that doing genuine acts of service for other people really helps build meaning. And what better to be doing a genuine act of service for someone else and also be getting paid for it? It's a pretty good deal. And I think that the good design and having well-built things around us can really improve people's quality of life, even if it's just the right paint color. Paint colors, I don't know if you know, but paint colors have such a huge impact on our psychological state. And, if I can just make someone's life that much better because I feel like I'm able to get the right paint color for them, recognize that. And it really helps build meaning. It's great. Seriously undervalued. Related to that, even though doing selfish acts might have some sort of egotistical build to it or some sort of thrill, really pure joy does not come from selfish acts. And so that raise, there's been studies done on this too, that up to $70,000, $80,000 a year, people's happiness with work goes almost parabolic, but then it just levels off. So there reaches a point to where if you've got your bases covered, it's not going to make you any more happier to make any more money. You're going to be happier by doing genuine acts of service for other people and trying to incorporate as much selflessness into your work as possible. What you should really be asking, as long as you're getting by just fine, is what do you really want to do with your life, and is your work helping you achieve that? So hopefully you can see that finding your talent and working it into something that is good for your well-being will help build that passion over time. So instead of pursuing your passion, you need to pursue your talent, and the passion will come eventually. Not only does the extra money from being in a professional setting where you're good at it and can excel help build that passion, but the ability to please people and to do something that's genuine and helps make their life better or easier also becomes an act of service that helps you become more passionate about what you do. But there are so many ways to make your work more important and make yourself just a little bit better at doing it. So be sure to check out the link in the description for the more detailed breakdown of this if you're interested in this, if you're wondering how to become better at what you do or find something that makes you more money. And I'll also have a blog post coming out on our website, link down below, that will go into a little bit greater detail and maybe some more anecdotes on it. But of course, like I said a little bit earlier, finding your talent and getting good at it and building meaning at work is only one part of the puzzle. If you get really good at something, you're still going to need to know how to negotiate and advocate for yourself and communicate and do a few other things. That's really going to be the cherry on the top. So stay tuned. We've got videos coming out every week. We'll eventually cover most of these topics. And if you have any topic that you'd like us to cover, drop it in the comments and I'll get to it. And if you have any topics that you'd like for me to cover, then drop it in the comments and I'd be more than happy to take a look at it. But even if you don't, please like, comment something, even if you hated it, to help hack the algorithm, and subscribe. Hit that bell so you get notifications. And be sure to go to the bottom of that description for some extra resources and whatnot. So thank you for taking some time with me today. I greatly appreciate it. And have a blessed week.